Well, our first guest this morning is a New York Times best-selling author. She was also the very first person chosen in Oprah Winfrey's book club. Jacquelyn Mitchard was a longtime resident of Wisconsin, now though lives on Cape Cod, I'm sad to say. She's back though today to talk about her latest work and what it's like to raise 9 children.
9. Jackie's new book is called What We Lost in the Dark. It's set to be released on Monday. And today she's back in town, and we're super excited to have her here. We so are excited. Hi, Jackie. Nice to meet you.
It's so great to be here. I'm such a homesick Wisconsinite.
I need to know.
homesick.
Yeah, what do you miss about Wisconsin? Because you had a beautiful, I was at your home once. You lived
Yeah.
sort of outside of Madison, if I remember
on a hill
right.
in Oregon, Wisconsin, and yeah, I miss my house. I miss my friends. I miss my brother and my sister. And I even miss the weather. And
No.
I know.
What do you miss about do you miss
But-
winter?
I miss, well, it's wintry out there too. You know, Cape Cod is not for sissies. We had Hurricane Sandy out there.
Yeah.
We had no power for 4 days. It was 41 in the house. And my husband wouldn't start the fireplace because he kept saying it draws heat out of the house.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I told him finally, I'm going to start the fire with your clothes if you don't start it right now.
Was it romantic though to have no power and be with him for 4 days?
And the 9 children.
In 41 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you know, wearing my
lot of romance there.
I look like Bob and Doug McKenzie wearing my Uggs to bed and my
Everything you
stocking
own,
cap.
right?
Tell us who's on that picture.
Oh my gosh, that's all 9 of my kids.
How long
That's
ago was
9.
that picture taken? Do you know?
That picture was taken about at Christmas.
Oh,
about,
this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are
That
the
was-
age ranges here?
Okay, my eldest son, who lives in Madison, is 29. My
Okay.
youngest son, Atticus, is 8.
Wow, you've got
Yeah.
such a span there.
Yeah, through birth and adoption, and they're not. No, this is the one that was just taken at
Okay,
Christmas.
this is Christmas of this
This
year.
Christmas of this year, and the eldest one is the one who looks like Jerry Garcia with the beard, and and
sure.
then there are my 2 daughters from Ethiopia, and my son Will making such a lovely gesture. At least it's a nice gesture.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
the peace sign,
Yeah,
right?
the peace sign, and
And you have a puppy doggy?
we have a puppy dog, Dante. Yes.
Dante. Oh, that's cute.
Yes,
very cute.
I'm trying to think of a name. We're expecting a puppy. You
Oh,
know,
you're expecting.
We're expecting, and we're going to get a Havanese, which is a Bichon, but from Havana. So we're trying to think of a name for him.
I love that.
You
I'll
know,
have
we're
to help you
trying
come up
to
with some
name the
things.
puppy.
I
Right.
like that. What about adopting from a third world country?
That was. I enter into everything with full speed ahead and without thinking about the consequences or what it's going to be like, and figuring that children were children no matter what. Now these kids, Dad had died of AIDS, Mom was dying from AIDS. Ethiopia has one of the highest rates of adults over 40. I think 40% of adults over 40 have the AIDS virus, whether they know it or not. And so it was a very sad situation. They came home 4 years ago on Christmas Day. They spoke 7 words of English between them. They spoke Amharic, which you can't learn. I mean, because it's like Russian. It has a Cyrillic alphabet. So it was a huge challenge. It was a huge challenge to
Communicate.
win that. No,
Oh.
to win their. The little one was 5, and she was just this little bunny, and everybody loved her and everything. The big one was 11, and she had had a life, and she had loved her life and loved her mom, and still loves her mom, who's dying, and it was a big challenge to win her heart.
How long have they been in your home?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years
And how
on
is it now?
Christmas Day. You know, in some ways they mean more to me than any of my children because they were so hard won. And in their little lives, they've endured so much more. We think we have hard times.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
You know, they went from being sort of almost little middle class girls with a house to living in a shack to living in an orphanage in 10 months. And
The
so
transition. I mean,
and then coming here, Ethiopia was never colonized. We were the first white people they ever met.
wow. You see, that's like mind-boggling, isn't
Yeah.
it? When you think about and I loved what you said was about she was 11, but she had a life. You know, it's like at 11, you can do a lot of living, especially if you've done some hard living like she did.
Right, and enormous memories. I remember one time I called her honey, and she said, "I'm not your honey." And I said, "Go outside and sit outside until you can come back in." 9 hours she sat out there drinking from the hose. And finally I woke up. We were all looking out the window, of course, to make sure she was fine. And we're on a farm in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I look, she's standing next to the bed, and she's got tears in her eyes, and she says, "All right, I will take you for my mother."
Really?
And started to cry and got in bed with me. And I've never probably experienced a moment more moving than that.
That is so moving.
I had to win her heart, and it took a long time.
It sounds like it. I think it's wonderful what you've done with adoption. And I know you lost your first husband when you were very young. He was very young.
Yes.
You remarried, and I've met your husband, and you've taken in these children and had some children, and I think it's wonderful. Denise and I were talking because a lot of people know that you were Oprah's first, transitioning a little bit here. You were her first selection, Deep End of the Ocean, which also became a movie that Michelle Pfeiffer was in. Denise and I were talking about how difficult it was to read your book and see that movie, because it is every parent's worst nightmare. And you wrote a book about a boy who was taken from his home, but then kind of grew up near his real mother, and eventually the two reconnected. Your new book, you write about this virus. You call it XP. It's like a fatal allergy to sunlight. But you I feel like you go places that are very difficult mentally for a lot of us to process.
That's my goal. You know, my goal is to trick people into going these crazy places. These 3 kids have XP, which is a fatal allergy to sunlight, and which can make your life shorter. And so they live at night. They live on the reverse clock. And they do all these crazy things like parkour and deep diving in Lake Superior wearing dry suits. And but one night they scale this fancy lakeshore condominium, and they look through a glass and they see what appears to be the work of a monster, a human monster. But he sees them too.
Sounds like
he does.
And then the chase is on, yeah.
And it's a sequel, right? There's a sequel to another book you have?
There's 2. What We Saw at Night is the first one, where they first meet this guy. What We Saw in the Dark is where they go after him.
Oh, wow.
Now, you're in town because you're doing a benefit, I think, coming up. Is it fair to say, because you have a sister and a brother here that and a son, that you'll always be back to Wisconsin?
I'll always be back to Wisconsin. My goal is to someday have like some tiny little place that I can come and stay in Wisconsin, because this is home. It's the home of my heart, and it always will be.
Nice. Do you like Cape Cod? I mean, it sounds cool to live on Cape Cod.
I love Cape Cod. It's beautiful. And when I'm outside, I feel like the richest woman in the world. When I'm inside, I miss home. We root for Green Bay until they lose, and then we root for the Patriots. So,
okay, I get that. That's a fair trade-off. It's so great to have you here. Thank you for spending some time with us and chatting. It always goes way too fast. But your new book is What We Lost in the Dark. It's a sequel to What We Saw at Night. That book, What We Lost in the Dark, is going to be coming out Monday, which is exciting. It's a young adult sort of crossover novel, and you can find out more about Jacquelyn by visiting her website, and always root for her to come back and visit us here on the Morning Blend when she visits Wisconsin. Great to see you. Thank you so much.